Hey, it's me.
She's a former mayor. They're a former evangelical pastor with dissociative identity disorder. These two like to talk about the topics you're not supposed to talk about. They might cause you to perspire just a bit, but they'll definitely make you inspired. Let's talk religion and politics, and what spirituality and emotional well-being look like in a post-evangelical world. This is Paul and Ashley on Evangelicalish.
All right. We are live, everyone. There we are.
Hey, everyone. Okay, I say that is sweeping and epic music. I feel like it is, I don't know, like the Oscars or something when I hear that. When I hear that intro, it's a big night.
It's a big night.
We're here on
All right.
Yeah. And we have so many cameras going at the same time. It is a little bit of an S show, but coming in hot tonight on Evangelicalish. Hot because it's actually hot. We are coming to you live from Fresno, California, where I think it's 115 degrees, and that's not like the weather app had a problem and everyone freaked out. Like, it is actually 115 degrees here.
Yeah, the other day, Apple said it was going to be 121 later in the week, and everybody was freaking out. And then they adjusted it to, oh, okay, it's only going to be 112. Thank God.
And I was like, oh, thank you, God. Literally, I was at work. This was, I think, into the week last week, and our son sends us a screenshot that says, what's going on? This like weather app is saying it's going to be 120 next week. And I literally, like, I thought to myself, okay, this is the actual apocalypse. Like, Christ is returning and the earth is going to burn into like a ball of fire. And then someone's like, oh no, it was just a mistake on the app. It's only 112. I'm like, oh, we're good. We're all good.
Yeah.
So,
thank goodness.
Thanks for hopping on. I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces out there and names. So appreciate you all joining us. This is the first, I'm calling this the summer of fun. I'm not sure, Paul, if this is your definition of fun or not, but well,
it hasn't been today, but it will be most days. So.
I think we're up for it. We're up for it. So I'm Ashley. I'm Paul's spouse, in case you have been tuning in to Evangelicalish for any length of time now, and you're used to seeing April, Jeremy, and Paul, or April and Paul, and now you're like, who's the other person on there? Well, I happen to have been the fourth cast member behind the scenes of Evangelicalish, cooking macaroni and cheese on the stovetop every week, listening to the show just from earshot. Just kidding about that. Was not actually a part of the show. But I'm married to Paul, and we decided we would do this show together this summer and kind of have some fun with it. So.
Yeah. And we have, with you as a former elected official and me as a former pastor, sports guy, we have sort of an interesting perspective of religion and politics, the two things you're never supposed to talk about at parties. We love to talk about.
In fact, it's probably why most of our invitations to parties have ceased to come, because they're like, those are those two weird people that are always talking about these very uncomfortable topics. As our British friend who does the open for us, we may cause you to perspire, but hopefully you also be inspired, or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm definitely perspiring right now.
Okay. Yes. All right. And by the way, when you type an answer, it's really loud over the air.
Good. Okay. I will. I'll soft type then.
I saw you typing your answer to Heidi there, who's our friend from Indiana/Ohio, and glad you're here. But I think we're going, tonight's going to be a little bit of a consort. You know, we did the post debate the other night, and that was a like, holy shit, we got to pick each other up off the floor tonight.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of that. It went from bad debate to even worse from SCOTUS and all the other things this week. So we're going to have to confab together and love on each other a bit tonight.
I think that's it. As Paul and I have been talking through really what should Evangelical-ish be about in this like next season. For us, it's like, well, talking about religion, politics, and how to have healthy relationships in a post-evangelical world. And, if you do the logic on how those things connect together. So religion has been such a driver of politics in our culture, certainly for all of my lifetime, all of Paul's lifetime. Religion driving politics, and both things really getting in the way of relationships and pursuing like emotionally healthy relationships and emotionally healthy spirituality. So it all does kind of come back to this weird religious twist of a thing that we're doing these days in our culture. And today is July 4th Eve, which means July. And so we thought
yeah, July 4th Eve is July 3rd, right?
July 3rd. We thought we would.
And by the way, I was going to say, and our evangelical faith made you and I believe, we're supposed to make the world a better place. Our city has issues because we follow Christ. We want to see those things changed. And we found out that wasn't necessarily how all Christians think. They're more in the, God's going to blow up this world, so why would we care mode, perhaps.
That's true. But, and we're going to talk a little bit about just reflecting on our upbringings and it's the darndest thing, because I can now look back and see that we were around that culture and around that thinking. But I'll say for me, I didn't realize that's where we were. I didn't realize we were supposed to be all the way on the far right end of the political spectrum. I thought we were on this like impact side of things, WWJD, like Jesus does radical love, radical grace. And that's how we should show up in communities and, whatever. So I didn't realize that was actually not the Christian Republican handbook. I did later in life learn that is in fact not what's in the Christian Republican handbook, or something very different by today's standards. And so we'll talk about that and what it means to us. Like, what did we grow up thinking a quote Christian nation meant, or like what would that look like today, if that is even a thing that we're to aspire to. We're talking about celebrating freedom from religion, and what does life look like if not looking through the lens of religion tonight. So glad
that's right. We're celebrating freedom for the 4th of July, but freedom from religion, not necessarily from the British.
Which kind of gets us to the first thing I wanted to talk about, which is I remember growing up, and my mom was an American history teacher, and I remember like hearing a little bit, and I was, a preacher's kid, and like, at church every time the doors were open, but my parents sent me to public schools, and I remember this talk about separation of church and state, and I remember teachers kind of, I don't know, just the debate around that. And I remember hearing about different founders that were like really insistent that there should be no religious test, and, and I remember thinking to myself, well, hold on. I thought sort of the Christians were the good guys. And I don't understand, if we are to, be so reverent towards our founders, why were they putting out there this whole thing about religion? There shouldn't be this religious test. So that was always very confusing to me when I was in grade school. And now it's coming like full circle. Now it's like right here on our face. Oh, that's what those folks were talking about 250 years ago, Yeah. Now it makes a lot of sense.
It always bothered me. Like people would say, there's nothing Christian in the Constitution. And I would say, no, and then I would look at the Constitution and say, oh, wow, there isn't anything about Christianity in the Constitution. In fact, it appears to be quite the opposite. So that was always a problem. And now it's not quite so much of a problem anymore, because I don't think the Constitution was meant to have Christianity written into the Constitution. And we have, endowed by our Creator in the Declaration of Independence, but the creator could be any God from any religion. And then In God We Trust was not added to money and pledge until the 1950s, and that was an anti-communist scare thing anyway. So yeah, it was always a bugaboo for me, like, oh wait, we're a Christian nation, but it's not in the Constitution, and it's just not in the Constitution.
You know, it really kind of brings me to a question. Will A in the chat on TikTok asked this question: could a non-Christian society have produced the U.S. Constitution? And it's an interesting question. And you know, from my perspective, being raised with this view of like perfect love and Jesus being the symbol of that, and believing in perfect love and transformational love, all that sort of thing. I think it does take accessing that kind of hope and belief in something bigger than yourself to produce something like the U.S. Constitution. I absolutely do. But I think the challenge is when in today's day, we kind of say like, well, you're not a Christian nation if you're not imposing like moral clauses into like civil code, that's the definition of a Christian nation. Whereas I was always raised to see and believe and to be inspired that, if you are tapping into this perfect love from heaven, you're going to make room for all kinds of people. You're going to make room, like you're going to believe in the collective. You're going to make sacrifices for community and society. You're going to want people to succeed. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's like, how did we slip to the other side of that? So I guess in my deep heart, when people want to wrangle with, are we a Christian nation or not? It's a stumper, because by today's standards, like, I don't think this really looks like what I understood Christianity to be, and I
would answer the question about the Constitution, but a lot of our constitutional concepts were borrowed from the French. So I think, yes, there was a lot of enlightenment that went into our Constitution, but the idea of, are we a Christian nation, and does that mean our presidents all pray to Jesus? And I mean, I don't think the founding fathers thought that's what a Christian nation was. And to me, why I always, of course, I was indoctrinated into the American exceptionalism, but what I always loved about the United States is it seemed like we were a little more self-governing than most world powers were. And my eyes have been opened a little bit to that's not exactly true. We've done a lot of bad things in the world. But I do, I pointed to, we could have probably taken over all of Europe and Russia after World War II if we had wanted to, if we were a fully engulfing, and instead we, rebuilt, and again, somewhat in our own interest, but we rebuilt Japan's economy. We rebuilt Germany's economy. We fought for Germany to no longer be separated into West and East Germany. And so when you talk about something like the border now, why I feel we're so off track with this idea of calling, horrible names and racist names of people coming across the border, and the idea of, when Trump was president, if we would just be super cruel to those people, that would stop them from coming. And I always thought America never even had those people. We cared about human beings, and in fact, it harmed us at times because we cared so much about human beings that we would govern our own power. And now it seems like that's gone, and human beings are not important. We demonize. It was gay marriage for a while. Now it's trans people, where we find somebody to demonize. And to me, you cannot be a Christian nation if you're voting for a candidate who is demonizing people to drive your fear, to drive you to the ballot box.
So this is a good question for others who are joining on TikTok or on YouTube or anywhere you're plugging in. You can send us a quick note in the chat. what do you think the characteristics of a Christian nation should be or are? Like we're having this big ideological debate over, Christian nation or not Christian nation. Okay, forget the label for a second. What do you think the characteristics, like if you were trying to really live out the expression of what you were raised with in the Christian church, like what would you, okay, like I'm seeing from Will A, the majority would believe in Christianity, like, and then what, like saying certain words out of your mouth, like what kind of society would you expect that belief to produce? I'm curious what you think those characteristics.
Why is that important that most of the people believe in Christianity?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, because it's just one thing to say certain words. The whole point is like, how are you living your life, and what do you think is important in your communities, and how do you, like, what attributes would be evident? And this is probably to be a little more specific. I mean, in our own community where we live, Paul and I, years and years ago, we were just told over and over and over again that Fresno was a Christian city. Fresno was a Christian place. It's a Christian place. Yeah. And the evidence that people would point to is because officials would in public profess Christ as their personal savior. So whether that was an annual prayer breakfast, and mayors and police chiefs and fire chiefs and sheriffs, et cetera, council members would get up and say
a prayer breakfast where no actual prayer took place, by the way.
Well, a lot of ceremony and a prayer to bless the food and a prayer to, okay. So Will A is saying like, that sounds pretty Christian, right? Like we were all saying the words. And I know Elaine is here, at least she was earlier, and she has been in the trenches of Fresno for a long time. The conditions of our community were and still are to some extent the most extremely disinvested, impoverished. Like the city itself is in really, really bad shape. And yet we're professing Christ, like, but we're Christian. And so Paul and I are just like, God, for being such a Christian place, like our city's kind of shitty.
Well, yeah, and Christian men. Oh, we've got a Christian mayor and a Christian sheriff and a Christian police chief. Aren't we amazing? And then you would look at the measurables of the city, and we're on like the worst place to live in air quality and education and economic divide. A formerly redline community, and we were just sort of like, this seems like, if Jeremiah 29:7 says, pray for the welfare of your city, for in its welfare you'll find welfare. We don't have welfare in our city. And that, we don't have shalom in our city. So therefore there's not shalom in our city.
And I am seeing in the chat here, Lake Life Please says, I was born in Fresno. It's not Christian, it's diverse. So hey, okay, Fresno native.
I've got on TikTok, my TikTok feed, KW Bulldog says Fresno is corrupt. So
okay. Well, that's the subject of another podcast. We could definitely go deep on that. In fact, a good plug for Paul's book. You can read all about it in his book, When Joseph Comes to Town: The Religious Right, Religiously Wrong.
Yeah, you got the wrong title there. We've rebranded.
We'll pitch the book in just a second. But
by the way, Dennis has a good one. Dennis says Christianity should not be nationalistic, and Dennis is on YouTube and is one of our supporters on evangelicalish.com. He says Christianity should not be nationalistic. A nation following the teachings of Christ would be taking care of the unhoused, the poor, the hungry, etc.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate that comment. So I think for us, and this gets us into another question, and we got some comments on Facebook earlier. We want to go through and then want to hear from others of you who are joining us live. But for us, kind of this whole question of like, wow, if we're supposed to be living in such a way that we are a vehicle for this all-powerful, all-loving God to like work through us, use us, whatever, to see transformation in our place and our sphere of influence, and our town is so Christian, then like our town should be a lot better. So that kind of is the beginning of Paul and me, like kind of sliding into a lifetime of unraveling a lot of the things that I think we were raised believing, and ultimately got us into our deconstruction journey. And then, of course, 2016 and Trump really kind of put us over the edge there. So we asked folks on Facebook, what is it that got you going into your deconstruction journey? And Paul, you said quite a lot of responses on that.
Yeah, we had a lot of thoughts on it. John Cox, and this is from the Evangelicalish private podcast group, which you can join by signing up. He says, I don't know if there was a tipping point, more of a steady stream of things that gave me pause. The Trump stuff definitely sped up the deconstruction when it came out that evangelicals basically thought Trump was God. Douglas, our friend Douglas, says COVID and the 2020 election were the final straw for me, but it had been a struggle to believe since about 2015. Elizabeth says, when my children went through a very dark time, turned to drug use and addiction, not a single person remained my friend. Went to see my son in jail, even though the pastor had said he would. And I always wondered, if God is all-knowing, then he knew exactly what we were going through, and why did he let us be alone and abandoned? And finally, Nancy says, Donald Trump, the ostracizing of the LGBTQ plus society, the suicide of my former pastor as he suffered from severe depression, while the elders encouraged him not to share that with anyone, because he would come off as not trusting the Lord.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had almost 50 comments from people talking about how the way the church treats LGBTQ plus people, the way the church is political and gets behind really bad people like Donald Trump, and then just, we're supposed to be loving in a family, but it really is more about agreement sometimes, and those are the things that we've seen drive people away from their evangelical beliefs.
All right, so Mimi has let us know there is a big echo, which makes it difficult to hear. And that is from the Evangelical-ish TikTok channel. So I'm wondering.
Do you have your phone turned down?
I do, but Mimi says it's fixed now. So, okay, maybe I needed to turn my phone down just a wee bit more. Okay. So, okay, thanks so much. Let me know if that changes.
We're going to get this tech down at some point, I think.
The echo is back again. Oh, shoot. Well, how about now? How are we doing? Thanks for tracking with us, Mimi, and letting us know. Is it all right now? Okay. Well, we'll keep going. We'll keep going. Yeah. So I, a lot of, I think there's a lot of common threads. I mean, mental health issues, the church not knowing what to do with mental health issues, not being okay to express what's going on, needing professional help in that area. The whole Trump situation. I mean, like that, I just think history is going to look back on this era, and I think it's just going to be this big label of Trump just became this huge dividing line.
And it's interesting because it got even darker this week with the SCOTUS rulings and such. And the thing is, we've seen this coming, but we saw our church, and by church I don't mean necessarily the one we met with in the building, but sort of our stream of Christendom going this way for a long time, starting with Jerry Falwell Sr. back in the late 70s and the moral majority. Like, what happened in the Supreme Court this week didn't happen by chance. This has been a concerted, well-funded, ongoing effort by Christians to take over the country. And now they are sensing, and I don't know if you saw the Heritage Foundation, the think tank that's been behind Project 2025 and these other things. He said today, we're winning. The left is losing their minds because we're winning. And this is a complete second American revolution. And it will be a bloodless revolution unless the left won't allow it to be so. I mean, that's a Christian organization. This is scary effing rhetoric from people who claim to be following Christ. And guys, this is, I think if Jerry Falwell were alive today, instead of in the darkest recesses of hell where he is right now, he would say, wow, this succeeded well beyond my wildest imagination. And we're seeing it in action, and it makes me want to move and do something, you know.
Yeah, when you say move, you don't mean to Portugal. You mean it makes you want to take action. Because
although that could be a part of the plan at some point, maybe. I don't know.
I know a few too many people who are finding residence in Portugal these days. Well, listen, we are just going to take a quick break to remind everybody like what this channel is and what we're even talking about. My name's Ashley. This is my husband, Paul Swearingen, Unconventional Pastor Paul.
Let's do a promo though. After this break, we are going to talk about sort of the reconstruction side of deconstruction. And, you know, where are we going now that we see all of this happening? What is moving looking like, I guess?
Yes, we're getting out of our doom and gloom.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so we have, gosh, we've been in the trenches for 25 years in local church leadership. I served as mayor of my city for 8 years in a term limited seat, strong mayor of the city of Fresno. We've been working towards like a more perfect union. What does that look like in our own community? And we've just seen a lot of stuff on the front lines and found ourselves wanting to raise our voices about religion and politics and how to do healthy relationships in a post-evangelical world. And so this is Evangelical. And some of you may be used to seeing Paul, April, Jeremy in the past. And now you got Paul and Ashley, and we're trying out the summer of fun here. We'd love to have you subscribe to our channel. You can also sign up to support at $4.99 a month. Mama's got to eat. What can I say? I'm not ashamed to say it. And help us just continue this platform. There are literally thousands of folks who download this podcast every week, and we find community with all of you and appreciate your support. Paul, why don't you talk about some of the folks who are subscribers and supporters? We can say a quick thank you to them.
Yeah, thanks to Justine, Olivia A, Will, Mick. I don't want to say their first and last names to out them, but those are at our fanatic level supporters, and we have Jane S and Jill S and Michelle L, Kate J, Emily K, Preston W, Kristen N, Charles S, and Dennis G. And if I missed any of you who are supporters, let me know. But how can someone become a supporter, Ashley?
Well, you can go to evangelicalish.com and you can sign up there. That's evangelicalish.com. And
we have free levels, so you can just get the updates. But if you want to help, you can do it for $4.99 a month, or if you are able to do a little bit higher, there's a $15.99 a month level. And we don't give you anything for it, but just if you appreciate what we're trying to do and get out there, please do it. All right, I do have a commercial. I'm going on a road trip with the 1946 The Movie people, and let's see. Oh, wait, why is this not working? Okay, my computer froze up there for a second. And let me show you a little bit about what the 1946 The Movie tour of the Southern United States is all about.
I might have to do it over again. Hey, what's going on, TikTok? How you doing? We're trying to get Instagram.
Oh, this is the wrong one.
As
okay.
Well, so.
Yeah, so you should. Technology for us old people. But yeah, so I didn't have the promo there, and I'm sorry. We are going to be riding an RV across the Southern United States, taking 1946 The Movie, which is about how the English version of the Bible was mistranslated to include the word homosexual. And that mistake, admitted mistake of the Committee of the Revised Standard Version of the Bible, has impacted culture in America right up to today, with Donald Trump being elected president in 2016 and being the nominee of one of our two major parties again. And so we'll be coming to a city near you. I'll be sending out some announcements. We go at the end of the month, and starting in Southern California, then to Texas, like Houston, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Birmingham, Alabama. Shout out to Beham Blue Dot over there, our friend. Into Florida, they've just added Jacksonville as another stop. So we're going to Pensacola, Sarasota, and Jacksonville behind the Bible curtain of Florida. Then back through Memphis, Tennessee, Springfield, Missouri, Oklahoma City, Frisco, Texas, and Colorado Springs. So we're going to do the tour. And if we're coming to a city near you, we could use your help. We're looking for housing, a venue, and some finances to get us around every place we go. So love you all, and we'll be putting out a lot of announcements about this on our social media, and hopefully you can help Rocky and me and the crew go around the country. And Ashley, Rocky told me today that she pitched a documentary to someone who has connections to Netflix. I'm just saying.
Listen, I am so excited for you all to go on this road trip. And I'm also envious because there's nothing that sounds more fun to me than doing a Southern cities tour in like July and August, just like really getting in there, the hot, sweaty, humid South, and just connecting with people. Like that sounds like such a blast. And then I've seen the movie so many times that I just know people are going to love it. And if they haven't seen it yet, and even if you have seen it, you want to go, you want to meet other people who will be seeing it maybe for the first time, have a chance to talk with others about it. But when you stop and consider the information that this documentary is bringing forward, and just how the question of LGBTQ issues, like how that has like literally like turns the political world right now, like every country around the nation, like or around the world, it is this huge political axis that all things rotate on, well, along with a couple of other issues. And what we might have gotten it wrong. Like it is a breathtaking concept. So anyway, I love the show, and I'm excited you guys are going to get to go. It's a lot.
And we're doing educational material around it. We're going to talk about voting and Christian nationalism and all of that good stuff. So it's going to be great. And if you know maybe a queer affirming organization that likes to help out with something like this, get in touch with me or with Rocky, the director of the movie. And we would love to have you help and participate in any way you can help. So cool.
All right. Well, let's flip the coin and let's look at the Reconstruction side. For those of you who are joining, we've been spending some time talking about what may have pushed you into deconstruction, and really how like religion and politics, like, I mean, gosh, it's the very foundation of our communities these days. Like what is even, how are we going to preserve democracy in this post-evangelical world? And so we had a question for some of you out there. You've chimed in on it. Like the question is, how are you pursuing life? How are you pursuing life, finding hope and inspiration as things just seem to be getting darker these days? Always looking for sources of hope and inspiration.
Yeah, so, and let's start it this way. Our friend Dennis is in the chat on YouTube, but he answered this earlier today, and I thought this was beautiful and poignant and transparent and honest, and why this is such an important question right now for us all. Dennis says, I'm having challenges dealing with the existential fear I have about Project 2025, particularly in light of the SCOTUS decisions this week. All my conservative friends are calling me Chicken Little, and despite my statements hoping I'm wrong, don't believe my claims and are still in denial and think the worst can't happen. But I'm a student of history and know how fast it can all go bad, and see rights eroded for LGBTQ plus and women. And I see the privilege of voting being restricted. I live in Texas and am gay. And I recently lost a friend of almost 40 years and am looking for any encouragement you all have to help. Wow. So Dennis, thank you for sharing that.
Yep. I think like the silver lining that Paul and I have been talking about and finding this last week since our debate of the debate after the debate show last week, and then with the SCOTUS decision this week, and kind of coming into our time here on Wednesday night. And, I've just been reflecting on, my 52 years on this planet Earth. And, I think so many things up until more recently, I've taken for granted. And I didn't, I grew up in like a pretty privileged world, and I didn't really have to know all that much about civics and democracy and the inner workings of government until, years later, and I got into that line of work. And the little bit of history I would read about, it's like, okay, there were these times in history where people paid the greatest sacrifice and they stood up for our nation. All like, it just never seemed like that was going to be required of us in our lifetimes.
Yeah.
And now here we are, and I'm just wondering, might the silver lining be that there are people, just imagine the individual people, one after the other, after the other, after the other, to the tune of tens of thousands of, millions, tens of millions, hundreds of, like, is it possible that this is a moment in our in the overall trajectory of the nation where people reconsider, what in fact is democracy? What does it mean? What does it look like to learn from, talk to, understand, be in community with people, strangers, etc., and like really work together for community and for society? Do you think that's too Pollyannish? Might this be a moment for just a whole bunch of people to get reacquainted with what it takes to have a functioning democracy, and we all choose it again, and we find a lot of freedom in that?
I think it's helpful. And I tend to go back to sort of biblical history. And you know me, I'm always talking about Jeremiah, the Hebrew prophet from what colonizing Christians now call the Old Testament, but is actually Hebrew sacred texts, that Jeremiah was saying, no, we are going to get overrun by Babylon. It's because we've forgotten about our purpose, which is the never-ending commands of the Bible to take care of the poor, the foreigner, the outcast, which would be our marginalized, like the LGBTQ plus community, the indigenous persons, the BIPOC and all of that, and the widow, which would be those who don't have access to the economic system the way everybody else does. I once looked at the Bible, and it's scary to do so, and found there's not a single command to ban abortion. Not one single verse. But there are 2,000 that say take care of the poor, the foreigner, the marginalized, and the economically disadvantaged. And for Jeremiah, it was like, yeah, because we're not doing that, Babylon is going to take us over. And that is, in his language, God's mercy for us. And so in some ways, even the debate last week has us now doing civic lessons of okay, can a candidate step out? Then what happens? And what is this open convention thing all about? It's forcing darkness into light. It's what I call the blessing of Trump. A lot of racism and evangelicalism is being exposed. The hatred of women, just a lot of stuff is being exposed, and it's forcing all of us to stand up and say, am I okay with this and where we're going right now? And I think this week was one for me where another time to take a step up and not sit idly by.
Well, and I see Gladys's comment on YouTube. They will know you by your love. And I think that's such a good thing to say. And I think probably most of my life, I never had to make sacrifices. I never did. Love was just a cheap word. It was like watered down Kool-Aid, and I could slosh it around. But I think we are coming into a season where we're going to have to learn to love in a sacrificial way for the good of our neighborhoods, communities, and society. It's just that simple. And it's not a skill or a muscle that we've necessarily cultivated well over the last 20 or 30 or 40, 50 years. we're having to relearn that, I think. And for me, I'll say, I mean, it's just, man, it means sitting with people who espouse maybe very different views than what I come to the table with, but having a value for them as people who share the same zip code, and like, okay, we have a shared future for that reason alone. I have to go jumping way back to the beginning of the hour. Like, to me, that is the Christianity, that is what I thought Jesus was like. That's what I was taught was like, here, as glad as it's saying, they'll know you're Christians by your love, by your sacrifice, by your, like, and I just don't think we've, have been considered a Christian nation. I don't think we've had to be sacrificial in our love for one another, in our communities and in our society. And like, now we're going to have to. And so when I say have to, it's like that to me is the silver lining of this. It could be that when another generation, a couple of generations of us say like, you know what, it really is worth fighting for, like one another, our connections in our society, they're worth fighting for. It could be that the fabric of this country is restored and that it fuels another 100 years of freedom and democracy and opportunity and the things that we say that we value in our country. But it's a big decision time. Like, we have to recommit.
I think fence sitting is not allowed anymore. I think the fence has gone away. And particularly in the evangelical world, I tell people you're either in the right-wing MAGA church worshiping Donald Trump, you're speaking out against it and saying, this is not my Jesus that I know and read about in the Bible, or you're complicit to what has been a prostitution of, if I can use that word, of your religion. And so I have felt over the last day or so a little bit of peace of like, and we never like to think about these things. And sometimes people say, like Dennis said, oh, you're Chicken Little, but are we going to need to have a new type of underground railroad to save people's lives? Are we going to need to help women find reproductive care and do it without going to jail and their doctors going to jail, so that we don't have a bunch of women dying, getting unsafe, abortions? And if that's where we are, and even we see sometimes the comments of people about me and my attire in like, am I going to be in danger? And are certainly trans people, and that may not be out of the question of what is coming in the next few years in the United States. And you and I were talking before we got on the show. You look at history and you say, well, what would I have done in that situation? Would I have, in the civil rights era, stood up with Dr. King and Malcolm X and my Black neighbors? Or would I have said, oh, come on, it's going to be okay? And so maybe the blessing of the season is we get the chance to make that decision of who am I going to be at this moment in history.
Yeah, I think that's it. And I see Dennis's question in the chat. I'm not totally sure I'm following your comment, but if your point is that that I've lived a life of privilege, totally, I agree. And I think I own that. And I think there are a lot of people who have had a life of privilege. And I kind of think that's my point. It's like, we got to pull all the covers back. And this is a soul searching time and moment. And to be able to be like, I don't know, like self-reflective and to reevaluate, like, what are you really willing to stand up for? And in the name of love, which I do think like that's, my connection with Jesus requires me to act, not just to sit still and say words. It requires me to live out of that, make decisions out of that reflect to the best of my ability what I think is good and perfect and pure love for people. And
can I interrupt you for a second and out you just a little bit? Like, you were telling me today, you are disturbed. You've been disturbed this week about what we're seeing going on in our government.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, so I'm like, I think my name today is like amygdala Ashley. I am on
Or
I'm
for
like,
those who have seen Inside Out 2, you are anxiety going, ah.
yeah, no, I am on high alert with the national election right now. So,
and for me, the immunity thing with I mean, the Supreme Court, you know, I was saying our system of picking candidates last week doesn't work. And now I'm like, oh, our Supreme Court, which was really like our backstop against all the craziness, it doesn't work anymore.
But here is what is always foolproof. It always works, air quotes around that. It is always true that individual people in our country, regardless of laws, regardless of what government tells them to do or not to do, etc., each individual choosing, again, the values that our country espouses, that we make room for people here, that, you know, free, fair elections, we believe in democratic processes, no one person is the boss of the other, like all those things, like I choose that, you know, like regardless of what happens with an election outcome, I choose that. I choose to live that way in my community. And if the bottom line is like, it's up to us. It's up to us randos, you know, like the upper echelons of power, those systems are crumbling. And yet there are so many good people who, you know, just in the name of human decency are finding kindness and truth, and like, gosh darn it, we're all in it together. Like that could be a beautiful thing if that's the end of this story. And I sure hope that it is.
I think it can be a beautiful end of the story. I also think we need to be prepared for some hardship in the middle of it. So, so Dalton on TikTok says, is this in the name of love or the name of Jesus? And I think our spirituality now is going to a place where like, oh, they're pretty much the same name. And some people find divine love and bring heaven to earth through them, not in the name of Jesus, but in the name of some other religion or some other practice. And that's okay. I think this idea of American Christianity, that not only do we want to like proselytize everyone to be Christian, but force them to be by law. And they say, oh, we don't want to do that. We just want, as somebody said earlier in the stream, and a pastor I heard this week, we'll just make people act Christian. We'll make people understand, this is a Christian nation. And so that is, I think we have to get out and move past this mindset of Christianity is where all good happens, which, by the way, some of the worst people I know are Christians at times, and nothing else can happen through other people who are bringing their love from their faith and their belief into the mix, and then amazing things can happen.
Yep, that's it. I mean, I think I have, well, yeah, just put your straw in that cup of love, man. Like, just do that, right? Just get your heart to be aligned to sacrificial love for people, and you're going to be good, and society's going to be good. Like
my problem with that, I always find love to be a little bit of a squishy word, because even Christians say, well, I am loving when I condemn gay people and tell them, well,
that's why I always say sacrificial love. It's that, like, make a sacrifice for another person, and I mean, like, really make a sacrifice, not a, like, look at me, I'm helping, the old lady across the street with people watching. I mean, really in your heart, like, go inside and evaluate, like, what are you holding on to that is not serving people well? I mean, I think that's what Jesus did.
Well, this is, it's interesting. Will A on TikTok says, Jesus told us to convert people. And this is one of my missions as Pastor Paul online, is to say, the Bible doesn't say what Christians say that it said. The Bible actually never says that Jesus said, go and make converts. He said, go and make disciples. Disciples isn't a convert. He didn't say go proselytize. And in fact, everything Jesus modeled was, I'm going to ruin my reputation sitting with bad people and not condemning them. And if they're drawn into a conversation, then we will be okay. I guess they're saying there's a bad echo whenever I talk. I don't know if do you have sound coming out of your computer?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's the reason you're getting the echo, I guess. We'll have to work on that for next time. I lost my train of thought there, but no, Jesus did not say make converts. Jesus said make disciples. Disciples are for people who you, with your love, come in and say, wow, why are you doing this? Tell me more. Like the woman at the well who says, oh, wow, you've told me something about my life. You must be a prophet. Tell me more. Then you can make disciples. But Jesus never said, go convert people to a religion. And that, I think the whole thing of proselytizing is why evangelicals, which literally means people who evangelize, go get others and try to proselytize them in, is where the divisiveness of American Christianity is coming in, because we've got this mentality now of, well, I tell you you're a sinner, and if you don't believe me, then I shake the dust off, and when the rapture happens, you'll be left behind and I'll be laughing in heaven. And I just don't see that that's what how the Bible tells us to live. And it certainly wasn't how we walk out our faith.
Okay, so we are in desperate need of fixing our audio here on Evangelical-ish. It is top of our list of things to do.
So let me tell you, if you go into settings, into your audio, and have your sound coming to your AirPods instead of out of your computer, I think that would take care of it.
Okay.
So check that out. And while you're doing that, I will let people know about my novel, Religious Right, Religiously Wrong. Roll it.
If Jesus were in America today, what would he say about the right-wing evangelical church? Pastor Paul's new novel, Religious Right, Religiously Wrong, a modern-day parable, answers this question in a riveting story of a mysterious miracle-working stranger who upsets a conservative, evangelical town with his critique of their political views. Will the pastor and people of the local megachurch listen? Or will the church crucify the messenger all over again? Religious Right, Religiously Wrong is the story America needs right now. James Fallows, writer for The Atlantic and former speechwriter for President Jimmy Carter, says Paul's book is very much worth reading and could not be more timely. Wayne Jacobson, co-author of the mega bestseller, The Shack, says this novel will confront fears and challenge the reader to a more excellent way of living and loving. Religious Right, Religiously Wrong, a modern-day parable, is available on Amazon or at our website, evangelicalish.com.
There it is. Religious Right, Religiously Wrong.
All right.
Can you hear okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So I think what's encouraging me tonight is like just people showing up and caring. I mean, even some of the comments in the chat are, pointed and et cetera, all the usual kind of stuff. Here's the deal. Like are we maybe awakening our democratic practices and processes because of what's going on all around us? Things are not fine. Things are not fine. They haven't been fine. And it's requiring something of all of us. And like people showing up and giving a damn. Yeah. So I think that's a good thing.
And Dalton on TikTok is saying the love that we're talking about is selfish. It's me, nothing to do with him, HIM, all caps. I had somebody yelling at me because I had the G in God not capitalized the other day. I'm like, you do know God is a title, not a name, but nonetheless, as is him as well. But the thing is, this, you're talking about, love that is sacrificial. That is, by definition, not a me love. I think voting for Donald Trump is the ultimate me love. I need a strong man to protect me, my income, my household, my family. or at least allow me to have as many guns as I can have to threaten other people, and not have to love people who aren't like me. I mean, could anything be more selfish than that way of looking at life? Than to be in a place where we say, no, if somebody is asking me to use a different pronoun, what does it cost me to say, sure, I want to affirm who you are? But no, me is all about, well, I don't want to have to do that. I don't want to have to change how I live. I don't want to have to change how I think. I don't want there to be a religion that has rightness in it other than mine. Nothing could be more self-centered than the evangelicalism I grew up in, for sure. It's completely me focused. And then when we started saying this should change our city, this love of Jesus, too often we were told, no, we don't care about education levels and poverty levels.
We
just
only care about conversion.
Yeah, we want to win people to Christ and get them to heaven, and it's horrible.
Yeah, that was part of the like, wait, what? That's not what I signed up for.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of showing up and
by the way, I say, instead of putting the 10 commandments on the wall as Louisiana and Oklahoma are doing now, why doesn't anybody ever want to put the Beatitudes on the wall?
Ooh.
Because we don't like that. We don't like that wimpy, weak Jesus of the, we want that. Yeah. We want that. My daddy's going to throw you in hell and set you on fire, Jesus, rather than the one that says the meek inherit the earth.
Yep. Yeah. Well, you all are so insightful. I love just reading these comments in the chat, and I don't know, just it's kind of like oxygen for my lungs, just being able to connect with folks this hour that we do every week. Next week, we're going to do an extended hour, and we're going to go live on a Zoom. So if you want to actually be able to talk to each other, and we're going to have a good conversation next week. Paul, why don't you say
who are you waving at?
For that, I'm waving at you.
Oh, yes. If you go to our website, evangelicalish.com, sign up as a subscriber, which is free, just to get our update emails. Or if you're able to support us at a $4.99 a month or $15.99 a month level and sign up there, we will send an email. So next Wednesday, we will do the podcast here live on YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok from 6 to 7 Pacific. And then immediately following the show, our subscribers and supporters and fanatics will be able to Zoom with us, and we'll have a Zoom room discussion with whomever can show up. So go to evangelicalish.com, sign up to be a subscriber, a supporter, or a fanatic.
That will be really fun. I'm looking forward to that. Who knows what kind of trouble we can get into when we're actually talking to each other at the same time in a private Zoom room. That'll be cool.
All right. So we want to talk now about something we watched and want to share with the Ish family.
Yeah. You've been sending me different clips to kind of get me familiar with this world of deconstruction and what people are saying in social media, et cetera. And the couple that you have sent me more than anything else has been this couple that has a channel called The Antibot. Mm-hmm. And I really just wanted to give them a shout out because I appreciate the conversation they bring to the table. I love the way they talk to one another and the way they invite, just invite conversation in their relationship. So we wanted to say we're watching them this week. You should check them out as well.
I have a little clip that people can check it out. So here we go.
Where I admitted where I was at with the deconstruction, namely my doubts about faith, my crisis of faith, blah, 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 blah. Thousands of people have been through similar things. Our relationship it was, I want to say destabilized, but it was kind of in this chaotic.
So these are the Antibot folks in
a lot of honest conversations.
What is that? Right? Left-hand corner of the screen, right-hand corner?
Yeah.
Not talking right now. They're watching some other Christian deconstructing.
So there was a difficulty to that, which I would say fell mostly on Bethany. I would say it's been in those early weeks, it was more difficult for Bethany.
Like if I was driving, I couldn't do anything but work on these problems. Mm-hmm. And so that's really the main way that I remember it. It was work punctuated by a couple of moments of, wow, I can finally, like, I can read whatever books I want. I don't mean like smut books. I mean like science books. Like I can read things with an open mind now. This is amazing.
So that's the Antibot couple, and they are talking about being free from religion, which we're celebrating here on July 3rd, freedom from religion and freedom to explore a spirituality that actually connects us to heaven rather than to what I believe is a man-created religious system that meets inside of four walls 4 Sundays a month.
Yeah, I really just like their just kind of honest conversation. So I commend them to you. All right. So
Check
that is gonna wrap us up for tonight. And Veggie T 2009 in the chat says this is just a depressing season, which is not a great note to end on, but I'm grateful that we're here together and that you're able to share that here. And we can just say, like, you know what? It is a hard season. This is the season that history will write about for generations to come. And you know what? We are, I believe still, we are going to live to tell about how we make it through. But yeah, it is a tough road right now. That is for sure.
I feel like we all need to watch Les Mis, and and they have a song in there that says it's time for us all to decide who we are. Do we fight for a right do we fight for the right for a night at the opera now, or are we asking ourselves the price we'll pay? And we all talk big games, and now this is a time to say, and so yeah, if you're feeling that depression, feel it. And ask yourself, what part of me is like scared in this season, and what other part of me can help, and say, okay, this is scary, but now we get to make some decisions and choices. And are we going to be helpful in carrying other people along with us? Or are we going to fall back into our echo chambers and our long-term beliefs? And I think it's what we want to do with this summer of fun, as you call it, is just talk about how for you and I, Ashley, that we've been saying, because we believe these words of Jesus, we want to see the world change now, not just believe someday we're going to die and it will all be okay, and get as many notches in our belt as we can for proselytizing someone into heaven, but rather that it's true when the Bible says the ones who inherit the kingdom are the ones who feed the poor, clothe the naked, and visit the prisoner in prison, which is a direct quote from Jesus, by the way, which Christians tend to ignore out there. So we can look at it as depressing, and that is very true, and really lean into that, but also say, and now I really am going to find out who I am in this season.
All right. It is time for us to land the plane. So some of you on the East Coast can go to bed. Others of us can go have dinner.
Sounds good.
All right. We'll see you next week.
Hope you all enjoy it.
Zoom. We'll see you soon.
Sign up for the Zoom, and we will be back next Wednesday live streaming at 6:00. We'll see you then. All right. I'm signing off TikTok and all our good Christian friends there with all their good Christian dogma. And we'll see you guys on Facebook and YouTube.